Okay, well, welcome to the Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union Policy Drafting Committee. Guess I'll chair the meeting tonight because Leon's off umpiring baseball games in this weather, so I don't see any public present. So I need a motion on the minutes of April 10th.
So moved.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We'll move on to 43, wait a minute. The rest of the agenda kind of goes like this. 4327 is family medical leave. I guess Tom is going to address that one. Maybe?
What it added.
Well, we just added a sentence in there. Was it highlighted? Yeah, there had been some, this was just under our review, but it was really just to make it clear in our policy that there are some times when they do modify the bargaining or the FMLA to meet the collective bargaining agreement, and they have been trying to come up with more appropriate language for that. So it was just to say, refer to the collective bargaining agreement, because there are some parts of it are actually more generous than the standard FMLA would be, that in terms of using people's sick time. So it was just to refer back to the contract.
There was another bold under introduction, if you go down below the next paragraph. Yeah, is that in the added piece also? Or is it just?
No, that had always been there.
That was always there?
Mm-hmm.
What
I
else
thought that
do
was the only,
In the first paragraph, that was the
I
only
thought
change.
that was the only change.
Mhm.
So it's basically just a reference to, as I understood it.
Yes.
A reference, to remind everybody, to look at the collective bargaining agreement.
Yes, because it's not strictly the
Right.
same as FMLA, the law.
And
And I apologize, I was on a phone call when you first started talking about this, but is this discussion only about the changes to the policy or about the policy itself?
Just that
Both.
change.
Okay.
Just, that was all we brought up. Yeah. you-
Well, it's, all of these are very complicated, so I don't know if we're supposed to be just talking about the changes, then I'm good with that.
We kind of jump into almost every aspect of everything here, so feel free to comment if you have one.
Well, this is so detailed, I don't want to open up a can of worms that's going to take more than 10 minutes, because there's a couple of things I'm not sure about, and I assume that a lawyer has looked over the policy and approved it before, so I'm not going to.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is an old policy that was
Yeah, this was one we
originally.
probably
Right.
sent to Stitzel and Page, I'm sure. Something like this we would have to, I can't imagine that we would.
Yes. The only difficulty that's come up is just that we're,
Right, our collective bargaining agreement is sometimes
gives a
more
little bit
generous.
more right to a leave than
Right.
the strict law does.
Right.
Has there always been a difference in benefits between PFLA and FMLA? I just noticed under the parental family leave, section E requires folks to assume the full cost of the total premium, and then you went to FMLA section, and it says that their medical costs, whatever situation they're in, any existing group health care plan benefits provided will be continued during FMLA. Is that?
And actually, that's one of the cans of worms that I noticed, is that under the Vermont Act, this is basically a rehash of it, it mentions that essentially the benefits will be cut off. The statute, however, requires that they continue, and I'm not sure if my understanding of the benefits being cut off is actually correct. But then that would be only for the unpaid portion of the period.
I just noticed that they were different, and I guess I was curious about why the benefit structure
I don't know.
during leave was
I'm
different.
not sure where they're.
Under, can you refer to a particular place?
Yeah, I
Yes,
don't know
I'm
where
sorry.
I know it's there, but it's,
Page 3E at the top, which is parental and family leave under the state law. An employee upon parental or family leave who wishes to continue, or et cetera, must assume the full cost of the total premium.
But not covered by, so if they run out of time, I think that's what it's saying, if they run out of sick leave, vacation, personal, et cetera, because if they have that time, the premiums, they're gonna keep getting a paycheck, and those premiums will keep coming out, but if they run out of that time, then they would have to pay the premium, the full premium.
Right, that's what that says.
Yes.
I'm not sure if the
Mhm.
statute allows it.
yeah, and I don't know I don't know if it does either.
And I guess what I was comparing that to was page 7G at the bottom. Which is worded differently and made me think that the SVSU would cover 80% or whatever it is at the time. Where I interpreted E in the other section to say, oh, you're on your own as soon as you go on PFLA, unless you're covered by sick or annual.
I think that means that their plan stays the same. It doesn't talk about who's paying for it, which probably becomes the responsibility of the person if, like Lisa said, if they're not getting a paycheck where they would be deducting the cost for the plan, the employee is still responsible for paying their portion of it. But the plan still exists.
Because even right here, if the plan changed, then it's saying that, you know, it'll be applied to that employee also.
Oh, well, I just read it differently and it sounded like two different standards, I guess, so.
It does seem like that.
It does.
And
Mhm.
I'm assuming.
I can read it
the lawyer
either
looked at
way.
that
Yeah.
and gave it the blessing of the interpretation that, I mean, both interpretations are reasonable, I assume. But I don't know what our legal advice was on that, and whether or not we should, now that it's brought up, whether or not we should
Go back.
ask.
Mhm.
Just push it back to them.
Yeah.
Right?
We can, I mean, the policy exists now, with our changes would just go forward.
Yeah, but could we not ask?
Sure.
I would think, in as much as they're also dealing with the collective bargaining agreement anyway, and part of the difficulty here is that we're really dealing with our policy, state law, federal law, and collective bargaining, all at the same time. And as I recall, and I'm just going from my memory, none of those mesh easily.
No, they
Right.
don't.
And so the question always is, how do we try to make the policy at least, and to some degree, I've always worried that this policy says more than it needs to say.
Yes.
That's really where I came down. I looked at it, and I think I had said that before when this came up the last time. It just seems to me it's trying to do too much. And if you've got a statute and you've got two statutes and you've got a collective bargaining agreement, can I ask a quick question? My understanding is that this is not a required policy, is it?
Correct, it is not, because it's law.
Yeah, so here's another option.
We have many though that.
I,
Full
God
on
knows I
policy.
know. I know. But my worry always, I mean, and again, if push came to shove, Vermont statute's gonna trump this anyway. But I'd like us at least to think about or consider the possibility that we at least consider, do we really need this policy? Does it do anything for us, or does it create more problems than it solves? And I don't know the answer to that question, but the more I read it over the weekend, the less I liked it. Just because I had all these same sort of niggly questions about, I'm not even sure that it complies with the collective bargaining agreement at this point.
Well, and that's why we're adding
I
the
know.
language.
And the collective bargaining agreement will trump it, and the statutes will trump it. This basically sits in the lowest rung of the ladder. But-
Yeah, it's not required, recommended, or
No.
under to consider from the
Would,
Superintendent Association,
right, would
or School
would
Boards
the
Association.
personnel, would our, what's the term? Would our person who deals with this, our human resources person, feel that it would be easier without it? Is that a question that we could ask
Sure.
Mhm.
and come back in June and, because
Consider it.
yeah,
Because it seems like there, in the Vermont law, there seem to be two things that the
uh-huh,
employer has to do.
yeah,
One, determine whether or not more sick time can be used than just the 6 weeks.
right,
And the other, and under the FMLA, the other is for the employer to determine what the 12-month period is,
mm-hmm,
for which you have your 12 weeks.
right,
The Vermont statute is not as clear on that,
no,
and the policy has a rolling 12 months, which makes sense. I'm not sure if that's allowed under Vermont law, because I don't know.
yeah, I don't,
Would it be unreasonable or too costly to push it back to the legal folks and
Oh, I think we just give it to HR.
HR?
and see if they even want it.
Right.
Because if they don't want it, why would we do this? We already have 2 statutes involved plus a collective bargaining agreement, or at least one, if not 2, collective bargaining agreements. Yeah, they both have
They
this.
say different things, I think.
I
They do.
think you're right. I don't think
Uh-huh.
they say the same thing.
How many employees are not covered by a collective bargaining agreement? Ballpark?
Quite a few.
I have no
30,
idea.
30 to 50 probably.
Within the
Is
supervisor.
that all? Part-timers and
Yeah.
everything?
Well, because it's just like secretaries,
It's all of
Well,
our
only some.
This whole
administration.
building,
mhm.
OTs, PTs,
it's
Yeah.
more than 30.
and then directors, and our.
Part-time contracts.
Because it's those folks that this would
That's right.
even apply to.
I'm just thinking of
With
contracts.
the change, but I
Our
assume we're all
part-time people
agreeing
wouldn't
on
apply.
the change is.
Oh, the change is perfectly fine. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The change makes a lot of sense.
Otherwise, it read almost word for word the way the last time we looked at it was, 2002, according to my.
Right. But that's
It's
15
the
years
same.
ago.
Well, that's sort of where we ran into trouble with
I know.
reporting abuse and so on. I'm wondering if it should,
Which we also didn't need to have as well.
Mhm.
I know.
no, but you kind of get pushed into those corners sometimes.
But this, well, we can just give it back to HR
Mhm.
and ask whether they even want this to be a policy. Or just say, refer to the law and contract.
Right. So, and then based on whatever answer to bring it back in June, with whatever answers we come up with.
Sure.
Okay?
We haven't changed anything that needs to be immediately applied.
No.
Correct.
and
No,
so
nothing's
we're
gonna
There's no
change.
harm
Yeah.
in leaving it out there for another month.
No.
That agreeable to everybody?
Perfect.
Makes sense to me.
I believe just that 12-month period is actually the sum of hours. That's how it's determined. So it's part of the,
Well, there
part of the
are two 12-month
formula,
periods
right.
involved.
Mhm.
You okay with that one?
It's as clear as mud. Sure.
Anything down as a statute? No. Fixed assets,
Oh, yeah.
number 1100.
You want to say where this is all coming from, Renee? Give
Yeah.
us a little preview.
So, well, when I first looked at this, it kind of read as a memo to me more than a policy. But recently, we had folks from the Agency of Education come down to do a fiscal monitoring visit. And through that, they noted some policies and procedures. Actually, many of these that we have on the agenda are coming out of that visit. So with the uniform guidance that came out, which goes into effect July 1 of 17, in preparation for that, people from the Agency of Education worked with a subcommittee of the Vermont Association of School Business Officials to try to come up with what they felt was would be usable templates for school boards, school districts to use to address these policies that might be lacking. So essentially what I did was took out what we had in there from many, many years ago and inserted the language that has been recommended to us by the Vermont Association of School Business Officials in conjunction with the work they did with the AOE. And then after, we get this policy set, we'll take a look at, I already have my staff looking at what we have for procedures set up and thresholds and whatnot that are there, so we're.
Did any of the adjustments make you feel uncomfortable in your position?
No.
So,
No, but in reading the fixed asset policy, it seemed like it was a sales pitch for GASB 34 as opposed to, like a policy. So, and I think it kind of binds, us to GASB 34 when there are other principles that come out, periodically and things change over time. So I think kind of pulling that back a little bit and just referencing the Governmental Accounting Standards Board in general and the general accepted accounting principles in general give us more leeway to react to things as they may be updated.
So it doesn't necessarily skip recommendations of GASB 34, it's just that
Instead of just zeroing in on that one particular piece of guidance.
and so, well, because most of this disappeared.
So Renee, it's essentially a definition of capitalization of assets.
Mm-hmm.
I really have no clue really what this means. But is that definition something that there could be other definitions? As in, this is a choice of this is what we're saying capitalization of assets is.
It's essentially assigning a value to our assets and then developing some kind of threshold or procedure for us to say, okay, we're going to use this calculator. Yes, we're going to assign this as a fixed asset, or no, it doesn't meet the threshold for us to actually recognize this on our fixed asset list.
I guess what I'm saying is there another way of defining capitalization of assets? Or is this the way it's just done? Because if this is just the way it's done, we should just say that
I think it's
assets will
most
be capitalized. assessed, or there'll be a recording of capitalization of assets rather than how it's done.
I do like the way that this is spelled out, because it is offering some guidance as to
So that provides
defining
you
it.
with something to do rather than following some other procedure. Okay. So that's not just, I think that answers my question. In the other two paragraphs, those sound like choices that we're making in terms of how they will be recorded in that fashion.
It's the same, we use the same model where I work for, if we have to put in for a capital expense request. It's either capital or maintenance, or, could be others, but if it falls under maintenance, it's not capital.
So having a useful life of more than a year really drives.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't go from room to room in every school to identify every fixed asset?
Well,
Is
that
this
kind of
incumbent on
lends
principals
itself
to do
to
this, or?
some variations that have happened over the years. I'm coming to learn that depending upon who was responsible for it in the business office, they would record absolutely everything as more of a log in case there were, a catastrophic event and we needed to figure out what actually was in that building, what do we need to replace, versus, following just the letter of what we have here and saying, okay, only purchases that we're making over $2,500 are we going to record? Well, we know we have a lot of stuff in these buildings that don't meet that threshold, but we would need if something did happen. So by bringing this up and then eventually working through the procedures that will be attached to this, I hope to define that more clearly so we can have some consistency going forward.
So the procedures will determine who makes the list.
Yeah. So if it's gonna be an inventory, if it's just gonna be, capitalization, is it gonna be a blend of the two? I recognize the need for that inventory.
And then do you depreciate it for a certain amount of time? I mean, those are
In
all.
accordance with, the accounting principles, depending upon what category it's in.
Yeah.
This is a very quiet group.
It's the subject matter.
Well,
Yeah, capitalization of assets. that's-
yeah, come on.
I've seen the movie.
Ooh, this is stimulating.
Actually, the
Stimulating.
previous policy was one that we didn't discuss wholeheartedly either, because it's not something over which most of us, God knows I don't know anything about, so we were given in, language that we were told that's what they wanted, so we said, sure.
Well, at the end, that's why I asked at the end of the day if you're comfortable with it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think that we're following the regulations from the Agency of Education and their recent visit that we are, under
Right.
their guidance, we're updating these policies to what they need to see. And they've been
Mhm.
under federal scrutiny for how they've been using funds, and so they're passing that down to us. So this is especially in terms of any assets that we use grant funds for, we have to be following their regulations.
Yeah.
That's it?
Sorry,
So what happens next with that?
finance is so boring.
It's okay.
Well,
It's okay.
when you're talking about it, probably when you're doing it, it's more exciting.
It is, I'm sure.
So you're happy with it and think that it could just go forward like this? So it would end up being mostly what's on this first page?
It's a one
Yeah.
page.
Through legal
Uh-huh.
references, through, and then this on the end, and then these are really the procedures, right? So go with the flow, send it forward?
To
By sending
board.
it forward, she
To the board.
means it goes to SVSU.
SVSU.
for warning,
Right.
and then it will go to every school board after that.
Right, so you'll see that again.
Yeah, you get to talk about it with
You
your
get to
board.
talk about it when it goes in front of the
Twice.
board.
Just once.
Twice.
I'll see it once though, because I'm not an SVSU board.
No, every board gets to see it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
so
you get
So
to see
I'll see it
Twice.
twice, not 3 times.
Yes, exactly.
Well, if you come back here, we'll torture you a little bit more.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not done yet.
There's more
I know.
boring
More.
financial stuff.
Yes,
Waiting for
there
travel
is.
reimbursement.
moving right along.
So we can move this forward to SVSU then?
I think so.
Okay, next on the list is travel reimbursement. We got the whole show.
Oh, yes, this is the, I've already seen this list at the CDC.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you probably have the same one.
Oh,
They
heck
visited you
yeah.
like the same
Heck
day
yeah.
or same week or something.
No, I don't know whether they, may not even be the same people, but it's the same stuff.
General, yeah.
If the feds are driving this.
This did not
Okay.
exist before?
Well, we felt this was part of several other policies that we have, but on their recommendation, we
I would
have to
say no.
specifically write how we monitor mileage reimbursement.
Yep.
Travel.
Who's recommended? Who's
The Agency of Education and federal,
Because the
Funds
feds,
modern.
because, yes,
The
because the
feds.
feds are pushing
That's right.
that with all of the
that's right,
states.
yes,
Because it's been all over the map.
yes.
Yeah. And what's the model that this is based on, with this language?
This again is coming to us from that joint effort of the AOE and VASBO. VASBO, Vermont Association of School Business Officials.
VASBO.
So
Don't know why I want to join.
with this one,
You could have
I'm a
more
member,
of this.
it's really fun.
More of this. Could be on their subcommittee to do policies.
Please, no.
with this one, are you comfortable with it just stating that it's only for expenses that are reasonable and necessary without saying who actually determines if it's reasonable and necessary? It says prior approval from the superintendent will be required, but it doesn't say that the superintendent will be the person who determines whether it's reasonable and necessary. That was my concern with that.
And that's part of our
There we go.
procedure, actually, now, is that it's Mr. Culkeen or Dr. Leap actually approving any travel that's associated with this.
So there's a separate procedure that's written that would implement that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so once we establish this, we'll develop the administrative regs essentially to define what is reasonable.
Or who gets to say what's reasonable.
Well, I think
And
that, I
necessary.
think that, I do feel that's one benefit of addressing this, is that, what is reasonable? We have people who apply for many different things, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to say what's reasonable. So I think that in our procedures to follow this, we should make that more clear about what's reasonable. And people don't understand that mileage is usually from the school building to wherever the event is
Mhm.
and back. People, maybe they live in southern Massachusetts and they think they want mileage from their house to Rutland, but we don't, that's us
Right.
reimbursed. So some of those things need to be clarified for people. And
Yeah.
when they go on a workshop, no, it's not reasonable to pay $300 for a hotel room, and, so we need to
Right.
make it more clear through these regulations about what is reasonable, because I think we do get in the mix of trying to say,
Mhm.
yes, that's okay, and no, that's not. So I think that this is a good way to clarify that.
Mhm.
Should we, in line 9, maybe put reimbursement will be only for those expenses that are deemed reasonable? To imply that there's going to be some kind of a procedure?
Well, it does say pre-approved and necessary for the, pre-approved activities.
It's pre-approved
Oh,
activity.
yeah.
Yeah, so those are the activities that are
Right.
not the expenses necessary.
Yeah, you add the word deemed in it.
I think deemed makes a lot of sense.
And then it also makes clear that prior approval from the superintendent is associated
Is necessary.
Yeah.
with that determination.
Mm-hmm.
Just be more
No, I
reasonable.
agree. It seems to
Okay.
come more in line with meals and lodging. I mean, we've had people that have chosen to stay at some places that probably are unnecessary. And they could have stayed at a generic motel.
Mhm. There we go. We see that quite a bit.
And I don't like line 19. Just the word hours.
Oh,
Time?
For all miles traveled on business, in excess of normal commuting,
Period.
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 Right.
Commuting hours
Yeah, what
would
are,
be different.
yeah. That makes sense.
Nitpicking, but in that paragraph that starts with line 9, do we really have to mention all those school districts again, or is there another way to?
Yeah, I noticed that with all of the policies, all of them are listed like that. So they're, on this one, for instance, everyone is listed 3 times in the header, then again in the first paragraph, then again in
And
the
then
second.
the second paragraph. I couldn't figure out why it was in the second paragraph. It has been our practice to do that in the first,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's in the header. But, because that's usually the policy statement.
Right.
But I, for the life of me, couldn't figure out why did we list them all again?
It could just end after activities.
Yep,
Necessary pre-approved activities on behalf of Southwest.
to there, right?
The,
Vermont supervisor.
no, you don't even
Just-
have to do on behalf of, do you?
Just leave the whole thing out.
Yeah. What happens when you do that? Becomes easier to read.
I've reached an age where I read 2 sentences, and by the time I'm on the third, I forgot what I read in the first one.
It wasn't such an exciting.
Fewer
That
words you
Just
have.
refer yourself back to
Being
the fixed assets.
reasonable and necessary for the pre-approved activities. Yeah, I think that's just cleaner.
Or 4 times because on the bottom.
Oh, that's true. Well, yes, we did that.
We want to make sure you know
That's good.
everybody.
That's
That's a little
just-
bit different, though.
That's, yes, this is to make sure
That's a
that.
different.
I don't know if you want any reference to the professional development policy in here, which is number 4120, that,
I think you
I don't know
could
if you-
use that as a cross. I would just
Yeah.
put it as a cross-reference, you
yeah,
know,
I think so
another.
too.
Great. It's not a legal reference, it's just a cross-reference. It's a different category of references. I think it's helpful to do that for staff to see and also do that, since this is gonna be a
Yes.
new thing, add that to the one on professional development. It just makes it easier for people to lift up. And I'm assuming it can link on
Mm-hmm.
the website, right?
Professional
quickly.
development has a section in it that addresses travel expenses.
Mhm.
Well, it also has direction on what it'll affect what's gonna be necessary and,
Yes, and how the forms to fill out.
yeah, it has all that stuff.
I didn't look at that other one. Is this consistent with that?
It looks to be,
Yes, it's just, it's actually, what I was saying before, is going to clarify more how those forms should be filled out and how, we might even have to improve them a little bit for mileage, just so it's very
Mhm.
clear and spelled out on those forms.
right. So for example, things like, where do you measure from?
Yes.
I think those are things that I think, and that's part of what, as I understood it, what the feds were interested in particular, so that they want to follow the same rules everywhere.
Yes.
Right.
There's one thing that I just thought about, because school board members are included in this. And so a school board member would be seeking approval from the superintendent for their travel. Does that make sense?
I think it would follow all the same parameters, but,
I think it almost has to.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. The same, the mileage rules would be the same, and
Yeah.
the lodging reimbursement would be
I
the
mean, I
same.
think it's sort of pro forma if the
Right.
board has said it, but
We stay at the Ritz though.
Well, the Ritz is gonna be on your own budget, not on the SVSU's, so.
right.
Has it ever happened, as a school board member, actually put in for travel reimbursement?
Okay.
I think
sure.
they do when
Okay.
they go to the
Like more.
Like school boards,
Maury
Lake
Yeah.
Maury.
meeting in
Yeah.
the fall, and there's another one
Okay.
coming up at the
Seriously?
superintendent's meeting.
That's the end of my comment. Okay.
I think we know who has it.
That's right.
What else we want to say
Okay.
about this?
That's the School Boards Association. Yeah.
Are we okay? I think you still have SVSU, so we'll send this on to,
You ready to send me out of here yet?
No.
Next.
Yep.
but
Oh,
travel
man.
reimbursement can go to SVSU then?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. As,
So we're on to next part of the show, I guess is yours, Renee, right?
And again, driving from the monitoring visit that we had, we do have a conflict of interest policy in place as it relates to
right.
just, I think, personnel and
Hiring.
school board, yeah. conflict of interest in
There's a
hiring.
school board one,
This is specifically regarding procurement, which is a big deal in terms of spending federal money. So again, this is coming to us from that same joint working group with VASBO and the AOE. This is what knowing, what the guidance is, what they work together to develop what they thought would be a reasonable template for our school board, school districts to use, just in that, nobody is receiving any benefit from anybody receiving any contract or,
Mm-hmm.
So should we follow the lead of the current administration on this, or
You mean the
presidential
current
administration?
federal administration?
We're following the lead of the federal administration. Yes, we are.
Yes.
You are
So-
so quick.
Is it possible,
That's something else.
yeah, that's an entirely different ballgame. Is it possible
Yeah.
to, after, in the first paragraph, we've listed all those again.
Mm-hmm.
I just,
I think you're thinking
this
the
struck
same
me.
thing I am.
Well, what I'm gonna say, even then, just put in brackets, here and after the districts. And then every time you say, so now, no employee, officer, or agent of the districts, you can go in and just substitute the districts for everything. Every time you do that, because I understand why lines 6 and 7 and 8 are somewhat different than the previous one, but it's just a pain. So if you go here and after the districts, or some such language as that, then you can just eliminate all those each time.
I don't like that, because we should go through every single policy and make it the same.
Well,
All
a number of them do say that.
They already do, so it's already a mishmash.
We're- As we work through
Yes.
them.
As we're working through them, we're trying to get rid of even having to list each.
Oh, yeah.
Because partly that's a vestige of where this committee started out, as being a reluctant child of every single individual school board, And we
I'm
were,
not even clear what it is,
but
yeah.
yeah, so that if you had one drafting committee, in essence, it was initially called systems management, which baffled me no end. But if there was one drafting committee, then all of the policies of all of the school boards, as much as possible, because they're separate legal entities, could be the same. So if you were going from A to B to C, you're not dealing with radically different policies. That's why. So we've been trying to reduce that, and basically saying here and after, or something like that, the districts, so that we just now talk about the districts. And eventually, as you know, if we're gonna do something, we may need to just change all of that, which is perfectly fine with me.
Right.
Perfectly fine.
That's what
Yes.
we've been
So-
doing as a,
Good.
It is what we've been doing.
yes.
I don't think we need to do it here, though, because if you just take out the list, it still works.
Yes, that's right.
Or,
Because it's still a supervisory union.
well, see,
Well,
the
that-
problem is we're not officers, agents of the supervisory union necessarily.
Yeah, no employee, officer, or agent may.
You wouldn't even
participate.
say, then you would say not of the.
Right, get rid of of.
Well, I have to put in the word districts.
No, you don't.
No?
Actually, under this one, if you did it the way they're suggesting is you delete and get rid of the words of the. Just go back, delete that, those two, yep. My only worry is that, well,
Of course, it doesn't reference anything there, I guess.
yeah,
that's the only-
so that's
Great.
that's what I
Employee
would
of
say.
what, who?
We just say of the aforementioned districts, and would that be clear?
Well, that's why
That's
I
why
would
you
say,
should
that's why you would
the
say of
districts.
the districts.
I don't think we need it, because we can't be talking about any other employee, officer, or agent anyway. They're only
I-
of the districts.
Yeah,
But
I
that
could go,
works.
I could go either
That's
way.
clear.
Well, that
That's
doesn't,
certainly clear.
that doesn't hurt us there, right?
No, it's better than the list.
Here and after is one word.
But yes, here and after is all one word.
Although maybe we should change it just because
I really don't like the word here and after because it's so,
it's one of those words.
yes, exactly. It's one of those words I hate that you
Can't you
see in
just say-
legal documents all
Can't
the
you
time.
just say the districts?
You could.
Yep.
So take here
Take
and
out here and
after.
after.
Just take out the
That
word here and
sounds so
after.
lawyerly, no offense.
Yes. that's
No,
why-
no, that's why we don't like it. That's why we don't like it. Exactly. Simple language is better
Real people
language.
talk?
Simple language is better language. You know, heretofore and here and after, oh, crap. It is.
What
From
else would
now
you
on.
like to do with this?
Yeah.
The language of this was taken from a model by VASBO. And, okay, because I noticed with this, the school board association model did not have perceived, I think it was perceived conflict.
Right. I like the idea. of
I like
having-
it too.
I think.
I
we
think
need to
that's
have one.
precisely the issue.
Yes,
That's
yes,
often
they
the
do.
case more than
Yeah.
the other. Be prepared for some pushback maybe, but I think that's precisely the point. Conflicts of interest are not just about actual, or the word here is real, but for the perception of. And I think that's the point.
Well, it's part of the point, because if you said only real or apparent, it would mean someone would have to be able to say, oh yeah, well, prove it.
Right, yeah, I know.
So perceived is an important
I
part
do.
of it.
I think it's an important standard. I'm okay with that.
On line 17, that clause only applies to employees, whereas the others, it's employee, officer, agent, etc. Is there a reason why that's limited to just employees?
Says
It says
employee,
employee,
officer,
It
or
says
agent.
employee, officer, agent.
Oh, the line changed from the one I'm looking at. I mean, 15.
Okay.
That
Oh,
only has
because
employee.
we took stuff out.
Because you took rid of got rid
Right.
of the list.
Yeah. An employee will not solicit or accept any favor which we, yeah, why isn't it the other? Why isn't it the larger group?
It should be.
Probably
Same.
Employee, officer, or agent. Those are the people that we're talking about.
Yeah. An employee, officer, or agent will not solicit. No,
I
on
know.
on line
Hang on.
on line 15.
Hang on.
She's got it.
Okay.
Copy and paste it.
I was
Oh,
copying
you're
and pasting right
copying and
inside.
pasting. Oh my God.
That is so clever.
She's using a
I
computer
bet.
for the reasons for which it was intended. Shocking. I just see it so seldom. I'm just
Do it over here.
stunned.
Another way.
Should we talk about the Oxford
Does it?
comma issue?
Let's not.
It matters. I think it should
Where are
be
we?
there.
It should be at least consistent. Line 6, well, it might not be line 6 anymore.
Can I say,
I see.
did you see about the case
The
where
comma stand?
it actually hung on the Oxford comma and the comma
I've
meant
read
I can't
various
see
different
variables based on
different
that. It means
things.
do
it
we
was
have it
actually
there
a
or not?
disability.
There's
case,
one after
interesting.
officer.
Then there should be one after every office,
Yes.
Okay.
or not at all.
Or not, yes. I would prefer it being there, but that's my style.
I like it too, but
I think it
It's
has
because
to-
we're all old, I hate to tell you all.
I think it has to be there, because otherwise you read it as employee, and then that
Officer or agent
might.
might
apply
be
to
one and the
combined.
same.
Yes, so it's either employee, officer, or agent, instead of employee, officer, or agent. Is it all three?
Who's an
And those,
officer?
I think we're intending them to be distinct categories of people.
Okay.
Right, when I learned punctuation, the comma had to do with, what's the, is there something new? that-
Oh, hell yes.
We don't wanna get
Sorry.
into that?
No, we
No,
don't. Splitting
sorry
hairs.
folks on television, I
Splitting hairs.
apologize.
As long as the, as long as there's been a comma, there's been that argument about whether it should or should not be there.
Right.
Like that one? You like that one?
I worked for a federal judge who desperately wanted to see it in every time.
I like commas. Okay then, so we're all happy now?
So
We're
as
happy.
George Burns would say, you never put a period where
Can you,
put a comma.
can you scroll down to the last paragraph? So the one thing I wanted to bring up here is that officer would presumably include school board members, and whether or not this applies to school board members. And is that the intent?
I think it should apply to school board members.
But the supervisory unit
But
isn't
how-
really in a position
To actually discipline.
Yeah, on what basis would that do that? I think if there's gonna be if there's gonna be an action about a school board member, that's covered in the other, isn't there the other policy?
There is a policy of school board member conflict of interest. There's
Right.
one specific to school board
Right.
members.
Yeah, I got it
Whatever that
here,
is,
but,
what is it?
7205.
Can you actually bring that up?
Okay, so
Possible.
if there's officers then other than school, are there officers then other than school board members? Employee, officer, or agent?
you're elected officials, so your treasurers,
Yeah.
clerks.
So it's, I mean, we're not saying officers excluding school board members, we're just saying officers, which is fine. So just leave it. I mean,
But
it's
we're
not
all-
like the word officer was only covering school board members, so therefore
Right.
that's the only reason it was there.
There really
It's
is.
there for other,
True, but does it include school board members? In that paragraph only? I think the rest of it does.
Well, I think that maybe you can change the wording so it's more general, like take out disciplinary action and then say according to personnel manuals, collective bargaining agreement, or policies. And then there are other
may take action. That's
Right.
Yeah,
fine.
may take action.
Right, and then policies cover the board.
Then it would cover, they would cover the
Right.
board, the others. Yeah, that probably is a better way, at least from this supervisory union's way of thinking about it.
Just take out disciplinary.
Except that the board member conflict of interest policy doesn't. Well, it's another one with no teeth, really, a board
Well,
member.
it is, but it's saying don't do it. And
Yeah, says don't do it, please
So at
notify
the end,
everybody else and
right, or-
avoid voting.
Yeah,
So-
don't vote.
Here
Yes, yes.
But it's not a rule, that's.
or,
Well,
that's it?
if,
Policies.
I don't know what a board could do with one of its members. I have no idea.
Not much,
Not much.
Not much.
No, 'cause they're
according to
elected.
this.
but they, about the, they could be sanctioned, which is like,
I don't
you
even know.
did a
that-
bad thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't really mean anything.
I would hope that we would all look at this and say, yeah, I don't really want to be involved.
That's right, that's the only
That's the
purpose of it.
intent.
So did you get around the board member part of that?
I just think it's taking action against the employee, da-da-da-da-da-da, in provision, yeah. Right,
Rather than disciplinary action.
yeah.
I think I'd take out the on line 19, take out the and/or, put a comma there, because people like commas.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're getting into a
And then
common issue.
take that out, put a comma. And then put and/or policy.
And do you want a comma before the and after the
Oh.
word agreement? Thank you.
And after the what?
You were kinda crazy.
No, that
I'm
is,
just going comatose.
Comatose, that's right.
Renee started it, so.
jeez.
Consistency.
And,
Are there any other references that need to go in here?
they are two distinct things.
Such as the board member
You
comment?
could put the other policy, right.
I think you do need to refer to the other, so cross-references any other, particularly the board conflict of interest 170, what?
7205.
That's pretty toothless.
Yeah. It
Well, there's-
says don't, but we can't stop you.
I'll fill in the rest.
Well, for school board members, it's,
Yeah.
well, that's what elections are for.
Exactly.
It just says it's a bad thing.
Yeah,
I'll add that.
yeah, you will.
What else do we need?
To see if, okay. That, the agency has not issued its own regulation on this, it's just
Just a
using the
review.
CFR. It's all
Just a
new.
review.
No,
Yeah, so this is
it's all
the
new. That's just
interpretation.
a big box.
Oh,
This is
I put
the
in.
interpretation of the CFR.
Right.
Okay, that's fine.
This can move on?
I don't know, I'm just sitting here thinking, and it can be scary at times, but supervisor union may take action against, when we stated that it was disciplinary action, it would be known by anybody reading it that the action isn't going to be a pat on the back.
Right.
When you remove that, do you set yourself up for not having maybe the full scope of what you could do in a situation like this? Because we said before it was going to be
Mhm.
disciplinary action.
Right.
Now we're just
So-
saying we will take action against. I guess the word
According to
against
the,
helps.
and according to whatever either the personnel manual or the collective bargaining agreement and or any policy. So it'll be the administrative regs of this would probably direct people.
Could be more specific.
Could direct us to what kinds of actions could be taken, right? And I would hope that administrative regs here under this one would in fact be somewhat explicit about just that point. Without putting it in the policy, it's better, I think, to do it in the regs, because then you can make changes as changes seem to be needed. Does that make sense? But I think but it should be explicit somewhere.
But with that, this is essentially limiting the action to the district or supervisory union, which to me doesn't suggest the superintendent or principal.
Well, the supervisory union.
They
Really?
wouldn't do that personally.
Oh, so you don't read supervisory union and district as representing superintendent and principal?
Yeah, unless there's something else that says that the superintendent will perform all disciplinary actions on behalf of the supervisory union, which it might.
Collective bargaining agreement. I'm trying to think, I gotta go back to my head on that one. I don't know, interesting question.
But again, this is language that came from someone else, so they considered that.
Well, it came from someone else till we changed it.
And then we did that.
We added comma.
Of course, the beauty of these things is when you develop a policy, they go to the SVSU and then They're
to
putting
the
them
boards.
out there for sacrifice once they hit all the other boards, and they always come back, or frequently come back with
Suggestions,
suggestions, yeah.
kind suggestions.
Some of those suggestions are even good.
Many.
What are we thinking? This is just way too quiet here.
Well, you know, the calendar did say it was last week. So,
I think this could go out to the, over to the supervised union and out for warning, because it's just for warning, and then it's gonna come back to us.
Yep.
And there will probably be some suggestions on this one.
Yeah.
Would be interesting to see the reaction is, I don't know. I think it's an important additional policy to have. This one, I feel much better about this one than the FMLA one.
So we'll move it out to the SVSU then.
Without objection, apparently.
What else was included was the tracking sheet. Don't know if anybody has any questions or concerns about that.
oh, we're actually talking about the tracking. I was wondering what that meant on the agenda. Are we just now going to track what we just talked about, but we're actually talking about the tracking sheet?
Yeah.
Okay. Then
If-
yes.
Just gives us
It just
an
summarizes
opportunity
where we
to
are.
see where we are.
Yes.
To show everybody else.
No, yeah, no, I get what it is, but I'd like to see more on it. Essentially two things. One, if it's, well, I guess maybe one thing. Essentially, who proposes it? Who's the sponsor of this particular
No,
policy?
it's where I track
Right, no.
which boards have adopted, warned, et cetera. It's
Right.
just to keep track of the process.
Right, I'm mentioning that we could add something to it, to say where these things came from.
Which I think that would be helpful information to the boards, wouldn't it?
But the boards don't, this
Well,
doesn't
for-
go to the boards.
No,
No, this is,
No, but it
This
would
is-
help kick us in the right direction if we have to develop something that
Or-
was sponsored by a particular event.
And I say sponsor, but a lot of these came from Renee. I had no idea before we were here.
Right.
Or where the draft, where the language came from. So there wasn't really a model except for what I could see on the
Right.
School Board Association website
Yeah,
to
that's
consider.
And
So-
I don't know how
Okay.
often new ones come up.
Not
Well-
a lot, but sometimes.
usually from several sources, but, it might be the school nurses,
Mhm.
might be an instigating group, or the nutrition committee. And it would be helpful, I mean, if I were a member of the board, of this committee, and also a member of the board, and I needed to present these to my board, I might want to have that information all in one place. I don't know how easy it is to do that in here, but it could be done right as part of the,
Right.
the listing of,
Right
on the
in
left-hand,
here.
far
Yeah,
left-hand
right here.
column, so that
put it-
everybody knows these came from there. Or we sometimes get drafts from the AOE.
Mhm.
Or we get drafts from the Vermont State Legislature when they're really feeling frisky. And so I think that actually is helpful information, or the
Mhm.
School Boards Association.
Yep.
It's helpful that for at least the person who sits on this committee, who then has to interpret this to their boards, to have that additional information.
Yeah.
You're right, the rest of the board members don't see this.
Yep.
But is it available to the rest of the board members if they wanted
Well,
to?
it's posted online
Yeah.
and in our packet, just.
Right. No, it's because it's in the packet.
Mhm.
But I think it's not a bad idea for people to know that there was a source for this, that we weren't just doing this because we just love these
Fixed assets, capitalization of assets.
Yeah, the capitalization of assets. I could not sleep the other night until I sort of worked out capitalization of assets in my own mind.
No, I think this is a perfect thing if you can't sleep in the middle of the night. Get up and read these
I tried that,
policies.
it did not work.
It's better than counting sheep.
But I think that would be a good addition, it seems to
Okay.
me. Does that make some
Mhm.
sense?
Yep.
What about 5005? How would you list that? Remember that was a
Which one was that? Like curriculum? No.
reporting child abuse neglect. What would you call that? That was sponsored by it.
Well, or it was initiated really by actions
Yeah.
by
Proposed
the,
rather than
Yeah.
sponsored?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it would,
proposed.
anything would be initiated.
or proposed, that was
Yeah.
proposed, at least in part, by actions of the Vermont legislature.
Yes.
That came eventually through the Secretary of Education. There was a letter that came down by the Secretary. So
But that wasn't why we acted on it.
yeah, that
Yeah.
actually was
Actually
why we
was.
started that conversation.
I don't
Well, it
think,
came from an actual event. yeah.
That's what I'm getting to. I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
there's some areas where
Right.
Oh, I see what you mean.
sponsorship would have to be,
Or
I would
proposal.
stay away from that.
yeah.
Yeah, I would just say the
That's what I'm wondering.
proposals.
Right,
Let's
but
say
that
the
might-
law.
might have come from the superintendent.
Right.
Or we gotta do something on this, or it came from the MAU board, or it came from
Yeah.
the chair. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, you know,
Especially the Genesis
who
stuff.
started this?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a helpful statement in most cases. Sometimes we decide this seems like a good idea.
Or sometimes there wouldn't be anything. No,
Right.
it's not.
Right,
It could
That's
be
not a
just
difficult
helpful.
thing to add
Right.
there, then.
I think so. I think it would be really helpful.
Good suggestion. You said there were two areas?
Well, I was thinking that they're really collapsed into one. It's proposed by some person and then also with the model language, who drafted it. But I think that's, the drafting part is not necessary.
Well, I think that we do take it from, you could say model, where
Yeah,
the model come from.
but it'd be always helpful to know where the model comes from. We know more than what's just up there, and that's why it's helpful.
Well, and we always do, like Renee brought these forward with the language, and, you know, we don't want to sit here and try to create that language in this committee, so it's good for you to know where it comes from.
Absolutely.
To start.
I agree, yeah.
So that answers your concerns?
Well, I think so. Do we want to proposed by and drafted by, or just have proposed by?
I, as a
Don't
person who
propose.
writes them from time to time, we always know, Bruce writes them too, we always know when we're coming in. No, let me rephrase that. People always know who to attack when you bring them here.
I don't think we should have any personal
And
influence.
Yeah.
then it
We have
becomes
someone's
ours
role,
instead
like
of
you
an
could say it
individual's.
came from a principal, or it came from the superintendent,
Right.
came
Yeah.
from a board
Yeah.
member, but
Yeah.
no personal names.
Right.
Because it becomes our policy as a committee instead of an individual's.
Yeah, it
after
does.
Visits here.
Or you could say it came from the community, came from
Mm-hmm.
interested parent, just something broad.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on the tracking sheet?
No.
Okay. I do have transportation written, I guess I gave you that, right, for copies of it?
Mhm.
No. We're gonna consider that next month. That's 3,100. 5145 administrative regs are gonna be coming at the June meeting, and HIV and bloodborne pathogens, the regs are coming for the June meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And is the second Monday of the month okay? I know we changed that, I think, for Dan Monks, but, because he has other conflicts on Monday, on the first Monday, but it's, the next one is listed for June 12th, which happens
Which is
to
the
be
second Monday.
one, but the question is, does that work for everybody?
You tell me.
It's certainly fine for me, as long as it's on the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
So Are there other policies anyone would like considered? Any other issues we want to talk about?
Oh, before you go on, you said we should have copies of the drafts of these 3 for next meeting, is that what you say? Because I don't. Just wondering if I can get them.
I can certainly send them, but they'll also be posted as the agenda, but I can send them to you before,
That would be great.
I think.
So when they're, yeah, when
I don't have them right now.
Oh, okay.
when it's posted for the agenda, then we go online and look at them where we can do our reading prior to this meeting.
Yes, you know
there.
the agenda I send to you?
Yes.
If you click on that agenda, there's where it says agenda, it's in blue.
Yep.
That's a direct link to the packet,
Got it.
which are the documents that you'll see here at the meeting. If you go to the SVSU website and
It'll be
look at the
one that's currently in
policies,
place.
exactly, you
Okay.
won't see the one that's in progress.
Right.
So you need transportation to get it out there, or you already have that?
No, I have it, you had emailed it.
Okay.
It's that.
Has Renee looked it over?
I don't think so.
Because that really is going to come from you, so. I don't think I have it, so maybe.
Well, you can copy it then, and you're all set, or you don't need anything from me?
Correct.
Okay. Other. If not,
I got it. Oh. If we can just look, there ought to be some that we have not reviewed in the last 5 years.
Mhm.
And we really should be reviewing every 3. So if we could, there has to be some of those, it would seem to me. Right?
We have been looking through the list, that's what we do.
That's what yeah,
Yeah,
that works for me.
and taking things that we, like these that came up today.
Right.
Things that are
Right, stuff that-
required that we don't have, or that are
Right.
recommended that we don't have, or we
Right.
review anything recommended to make sure they're in
Mhm.
alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Just so we keep a handful of them rolling forward. So there are some very old ones that probably we should look at removing some of them from the policy. They're antiques.
And we are keeping dates now on when we have reviewed them, right?
Yes.
It's on the end of every policy.
Yep.
That's what well, it's not.
Anyone that we
In the new
have
ones.
done in the
That's right,
process.
that's the thing.
As we review them, then I'm putting in the new block that shows review date, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
any policies suggested that we should look at?
Is that how it comes up?
Can.
Where
It can come
just
up in
sort of,
a million ways, so
Okay.
any way works.
because I'm surprised that there are so few actual school board members here.
This is not typical.
Yeah.
This
And I
is
think
pretty
it's-
atypical.
And I think it's because of the date change, so.
And maybe we usually have 3 or 4 more. maybe.
Yeah, I would say, anyway.
But I'm just wondering if that should be a regular part of the agenda.
What's that?
Policy
What?
proposals or
Yeah.
policy changes,
I think.
so
we-
that we'll
yeah.
be expecting to have someone say it each time.
Mm-hmm.
It might just be none.
I think that's why we go over the tracking sheet every time to say,
Yeah.
are there any others moving forward that people consider?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Okay, so that makes sense. If it's part of the tracking sheet conversation.
Yeah, oftentimes.
If there's no others, we should adjourn.
So are we sticking with June 12th for the next meeting?
It seemed like it was okay with everybody in this
Yes.
group.
Okay.
Sure.
Ready?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Okay.